Hello, everyone. So, welcome back to another Tuesday where I unpack a bunch of questions that you guys have about schooling. So, this week has been quite busy because I've been going to school and started my second week. So, we have assignments and stuff now. So, it's just been a lot. But here I am showing up, taking this YouTube live stream thing much more seriously and just debriefing my life with you guys. So, today's topic is exchange programs, and feel free to chat or give me some questions in the live chat as well. I'll try my best to go back and forth between the questions that I have on my iPad and then the questions that you guys have currently. But let's jump right into the topic, which is exchange programs. So, as you guys know, graduated from U of T the top of the year in May, and I have since started my new semester at NYU as a grad student. But during my time as an undergrad, I went on two exchange trips. So, the exchange trips were Paris and Singapore. Paris and Singapore were amazing. And I just wanted to talk you guys through my entire journey from 0 to 100. Firstly, why did I decide to go on exchange in the first place? And that is very, very different from person to person. I know that some of my friends went on exchange for the language, for example, getting better at French. I know that there are some friends that went on exchange to be closer to family. For example, they had family in Paris and they actually stayed in their grandparents' basement and they went to school across the street. And there's other people that wanted like a more worldly experience. And for me, that was exactly that. I wanted to travel while also studying and be immersed in different cultures and just broaden my horizons and live in different countries to see like where I eventually wanted to go. And eventually, I believe that became like made me become a really well-rounded and cohesive thinker when it came to looking through new lenses and seeking new perspectives when it comes to like worldly topics. So that was exactly why I wanted to go on exchange in the first place. Secondly, did I always want to go on a study abroad trip? I wanted to go to my summer abroad. However, my semester abroad was very last minute. And I'll tell you guys why when I go into what is a summer abroad and then what is a semester abroad. So, a summer abroad is basically like a summer class. However, you take your summer class at your destination. So, the summer abroad class that I had was my class in Singapore, and the class was called Modern China. So it was a very cohesive class about China, politics in China, economics in China, China and its foreign relations, and then China and its current political tensions, and then its relationship with Canada. So that class was just a one credit class. So one credits translate to two classes at U of T. So basically, by taking this class in Singapore, that only lasted 3 weeks. So, like I say, like 1 month, 3 weeks, equivalent to two classes. So, when I came back to my last year at U of T, I only actually had to take 8 classes that year instead of 10, if that makes sense. So it's basically a summer class, just like how you would take a summer course. So you can take less of a load in the fall or spring semesters. It's like that, but in a different country. And I thought that was great. The application process for that was quite simple. All you had to do was send in an essay, sign up on the study abroad learning website on U of T, and then hand in your grades. There's a grade cutoff of I think 3.3 GPA, which is like an average of like a B plus, I think. And then that's that. And then they'll pick out of all the people who applied, they'll pick a handful, and then you'll go into class with the professor. It's important to note that on a summer abroad class, it'll actually be a U of T professor going to a international institution and teaching you there. So you're not getting taught by a professor at that university. You're getting taught by a U of T professor going to that university with you. But you'll have like teachers that like drop in, and then you'll have special guests and special speakers. So that is the difference for summer abroad. So, summer abroad, I think it's a great way to actually get that international experience and immerse yourself in a different culture and gain that educational experience without having to commit for a whole semester. And a semester is around 4 to 5 months. Okay, now getting into semester abroad. So, semester abroad is a little bit different because instead of being only 3 weeks over the summer, it's entire semester. For example, I did the spring 2024 semester. So that was 2 years ago, which seems like it was so dreamy back then. I can't believe it's 2026. So, but it'll be like from January 2024 all the way to, for example, like I think I did mine until May 2024. So, like, it was like January to May type of thing. And basically, what's special about exchange is that you actually get to have multiple different classes and you're taught by an instructor at that institution. So when I was in Paris, I went to a school called Sciences Po, and I got taught by actual French instructors that spoke English, obviously, because I can't speak French. But I was taught by real faculty and like real people there. So that was really, really fun. The application process for semester abroad is quite different. You still have to do an essay, you have to hand in your grades, but you also have to hand in a very, very long timeline of a bunch of potential classes that you would want to take, and you have to make sure it matches with your current degree. So, for example, I was doing international relations and policy. So, I had to make sure that I was taking classes that related to international relations, political science, economics, all that type of stuff. So the classes I took was, I think, maritime law, diplomacy, developmental economics, and I think it was statistics, or it was actually environmental law, or I think it was contemporary Asian politics. I forgot, but it was definitely along the lines of that. So, for example, if you were wanting to go on exchange and you were a business student, you would have to make sure you're taking business classes like management or consulting or stats or economics or finance or something like that at your school of choice. And the funny thing about semester abroad is that instead of choosing where you want to go, you actually pick your top 5 schools, you rank them from 1 to 5, and then your university, your home university, will send out your application to a bunch of their affiliate universities, and those universities will choose you. So it's actually a reverse process. You apply, but you're only applying to a pool, and then you're going to be selected by the school. So a funny thing is, I didn't actually want to go to Paris that badly. Paris was like, I think my second or my third choice, and UCL, so the University College London, I think that's what it stands for, was my first choice because I wanted to be in London because I honestly didn't really want to go to a place that didn't speak English, but it turns out I got accepted into Paris. And then I was like, whoa. So the timeline for this type of application is quite long. So if you're watching this right now and you're interested in doing exchange during your undergrad, you should make sure that you're thinking about this in the summer, the year before you actually want to go. Like you should be planning like a year before you actually go. So I applied for this exchange, I think around January of my second year. And then after I got in second year summer, so second year summer, that was like in the summer, like June, that's when I got accepted into Paris. Like I opened the envelope and then I was expecting to see UCL, but then I got Paris. which is my second choice. I know some people who got their fourth or fifth choices, and that's probably why they didn't end up actually going on their exchange. But I got into my second choice, and I was like, like I don't really want to go to Paris. Like it doesn't really suit my vibe. And then like a couple months went on. I didn't decline it yet. It was still sitting in the bottom of my drawer. And then it's time to officialize your offer in November. And I remember officializing my offer literally the day before. 'Cause, like, I was talking to my friends, they're like, "Natalie, of course you should go. This is a great opportunity for you." And I was like, "Really?" And then I actually ended up going. So, that was my thought process. It was quite last minute. So, because it was last minute, I had a difficult time getting housing. So, housing was its whole thing because there was also, like, dormitories in Paris that international students could stay in for school, but some reason the application process is very, very tricky, very, very difficult, and they have limited amounts of room. So I know people, like friends that I've made on exchange in Paris, that got to stay in the dormitories, but for me, I did not get in, so I had to find a studio, and I stayed in, Saint-Germain-des-Prés. It was in the 6th arrondissement, and it was just so amazing. I had such a great time living there. It was a very safe and cozy area. My rent was not cheap, but the experience, and if you have the ability to go, it was amazing. I lived in a studio apartment and I had like my own laundry and I had my own dining room and I had my own kitchen and it was just an amazing, amazing place to stay in. So I'm very lucky. And I also stayed a 5 minute walk to Sciences Po. Sciences Po is also a very, very prestigious and well renowned university in Europe. When I tell people that I went there for exchange, they're like, oh, that is a very good school. And I'm like, thank you. So, yeah, if you're definitely looking for that type of experience, I recommend that. So, the duration, like I said, it lasts until May. My exam season was in May. And depending on your school, you have different regulations. But for me specifically, I had to take 4 credits and I had to do full time and I had to make sure all my classes were in person. And if I failed a class, I would basically have to retake a credit back at my home university in Toronto. So it was either pass or fail. If I passed, I get the credit. If I fail, I don't get the credit. Now, individual scoring would not go into my GPA. So I could get like a 60 in Paris and it wouldn't affect my overall GPA at U of T. However, you get a separate transcript for your time in Paris and sometimes depending on what job or on depending on what graduate school you apply for, they'll ask for that transcript just in case. For example, when I applied for NYU, they asked for my Sciences Po transcript. And I barely passed some of my courses because it was hard. I'm not going to lie. If you want to have an easy breezy, wonderful exchange experience, I would recommend going to like Australia or Barcelona or like Brazil or something chill. Paris is like low key kind of cutthroat. My classes were hard. My classes were really difficult. It was really rigorous and I had to do a lot of readings. My economics class was so hard. Like even I was like friends with a bunch of business majors and they had a difficult time. And I'm not a business major at all, but I was still doing that stuff. And especially there was like debate classes and there was one diplomacy debate class that I had to be in and I barely passed that class. I guess my speaking skills aren't that great. But yeah, it was definitely hard in that sense. Like even passing was quite difficult. But I made sure to stack my courses Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. So I would be in school from like 9 to 5, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I would use that time to go travel around. So I would travel to like London, Germany. I would go to other parts of France. I also went to Tomorrowland, which is a rave, went to Geneva. I went to so many amazing places that I went to Amsterdam. You really have to travel when you're on exchange. And if you don't travel on your weekends, you're not doing it right. So you got to do it. So that's when it comes to the application process. School and academics, like I said, it's a renowned and prestigious institution, and you're getting taught by the best of the best faculty in France when it comes to diplomacy and economics. So my school was quite stringent when it came to grades, and absences were not taken lightly. So throughout the whole semester, you're only allowed to miss, I think, up to 3 classes, and then if you miss more than 3 or more than 2, if you miss more than 2 classes, automatic fail, unless you have a medical note. The only reason why I was able to get away with it was because I actually ate peanuts during Paris, and I had to get hospitalized because I had a peanut allergy and I got the flu at the same time. So I used that doctor's note, and then I waived one of my absences, but if I didn't do that, I actually would have failed one of my classes. So that was really tricky. And when it came to exams, exams are just like normal, any normal university. You just go in during class time, you write it by hand. Paris is, like Sciences Po in general, is a very traditional educational institution. So a lot of stuff was actually handwritten or like in person presentations, no recordings, which is good and bad at the same time. It really depends on what kind of academic experience you want. Like I said, for housing, I stayed in a studio and I used a bunch of websites to help me. I don't remember the name of the exact website I used. I think it's called like Paris Apartments or like Paris Student or Paris Alliance, something like that. But I'll link it down at the bottom when I do remember. And it was really great for students trying to find temporary housing. I paid month to month, and then I chose to do it for 5 months over the course from like January to May. So I just paid month to month, and then afterward, a new student would come in, and it was very convenient in that sense. In comparison to America, where month to month leases are very rare, like Canada and America, when you go to Europe and Asia, month to month leases are actually very, very common because people travel around a lot for school and work. So, money and budgeting. So, you're probably wondering how did I travel to like so many different countries every single weekend? Like, I went to Morocco, I went to Spain twice, I went to Barcelona, I went to Milan, I went to Budapest. Like, how did I? And the truth is, I spent all my money. All my savings that I saved up from high school, I spent all of it. And I don't regret it. And maybe I could have been a little bit more actually, I didn't spend all of it. I put half of my savings into a savings account, high interest savings account, and I also put it into investments. And I just used all of my spending money. So now I'm like very, very careful about how I spend my money. But in like on exchange, I like basically looked at my bank account and I was like, hey, like, I'm gonna spend all of it because I wanna, like, have absolute most fun on this trip. So, yeah, obviously, like, I had support from my mom and dad, which was amazing also. But if you wanna have fun, just make sure to budget well, and there's also on-campus working opportunities for international students if you need that as well. It's just dependent on your university. Budgeting, I tried my best to travel cheap. So I actually went to Amsterdam from Paris on a $20 bus, and the bus was 10 hours, and I didn't pee because I was too scared. So that's like one way you can save money. I also like don't really buy designer. Like obviously, like when you see me and my mom on live stream, like we're always shopping, but that's her money. When it comes to my own money, I'm actually very frugal. Like this is like I bought for Christmas, and then this I've had since 2021. Like I don't actually buy that many brand names. So when I was in Paris, I focused a lot on experiences. When I went to Switzerland, I went paragliding. And then after that, I ate McDonald's for a whole week. So it's just kind of like you give and take. If you want to go to Paris for the shopping, you go for shopping. But I really went for experiences and I really traveled around. So it's just that's how you budget. I mean, there's no wrong or right way. I'm not going to tell you how to use your money. Social life and making friends. You will get back what you put in wholeheartedly. If you try your best to make friends, you're talking to people in class, you're signing up for the group chats, and you're messaging in the group chats, and you're signing up for events on Instagram, you will make friends. And people who go on an exchange are eager to make friends back. So it's not like you're talking to a black abyss. Like everyone is also trying to be social and make friends. So you'll definitely find the right people in no time. Also, my friends from exchange, I'm still best friends with them till this day. I really believe in energy, and because you're on exchange for such a short period of time, you only have like little moments that you must spend on having fun. So you need to pick and choose like very, very aggressively who you want to be friends with. If they're not fun, then don't be friends with them. Just like bye. Like you really got to pick and choose. And my best friend from exchange is now my best friend in New York. And she was actually one of the people who persuaded me to go to New York because she was an NYU undergraduate student. So it's little things like that that trickle. And then your life just changes after you make these types of connections because you make connections with people worldwide. And lastly, there are definitely things at your school that provide networking or social events for international students. In Europe, there's a thing called Erasmus, Erasmus, and it stands for something long. I think it's exchange student, blah, 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 social, blah, 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 blah. I don't know, but you can search it up, Erasmus, ASMUS. And it is basically an organization where all of the universities in Europe are affiliates. And it's organizations that create events for international students. And each week they'll have clubbing events. At the beginning of the semester, they'll have like a yacht party, like a boat party. I went to the boat party in Paris, like along the Seine, and it was hosted by Erasmus. It was absolutely so fun. And like I met my best friends on these events. You just have to be unafraid to like go outside and like have fun and really put yourself out there. And obviously you're thinking, Natalie, you don't even speak French. Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I got closer with my English speaking counterparts because we're in a big city and we don't speak the language. So it's like very easy to like build stronger connections that way. So that is my social life. The hardest part about being in Paris, I would have to say, was definitely the cultural shock. And despite Paris being a global city, it is one of the world's financial hubs, social hubs, fashion hubs. Like it's such a phenomenal city. It is a little bit racist. And that was just kind of, I was just never experienced that before coming from Canada, especially coming from Richmond, which is like a very Asian city. If you're from Toronto, it's basically like the Richmond Hill of Vancouver. Like it's very Asian. And then coming to New York, which is like diverse to the bone, and Toronto as well. Like being in Paris was a little bit difficult. Like and when I spoke English, people would talk back to me in French. When I told them I couldn't speak French, they would keep on speaking to me in French. Or, for example, I would get looks, or people would like catcall me on the street and say konnichiwa. Or like I wouldn't get into clubs because, or I couldn't get into clubs or social events because I wasn't tall enough, or I wasn't wearing the right dress, or just little things like that, which was very, very different for me. So that was definitely a little bit tough. Like there were times where I didn't even want to go to the grocery store because I just felt such imposter syndrome, and like I knew that people would speak to me differently or like look at me different. Or when I would go out to eat with like other Asian friends, for example, like I would notice like charges that looked very foreign on the receipt. I would ask them, what am I getting? Why am I paying for this charge? And they're like, oh, it's extra service charge. And then I'd be very confused, like, why? Like, I don't understand. But you can't even talk back, you know? So that was very interesting for me. And maybe it just comes from like a very sheltered point of view. And that is just something that I learned. So learned, struggled, grew. So now I know like in the future, whenever I visit places, like similar to that vibe, I know exactly how to handle it. I know what to do. I think one thing that people love is that if you try. So even though I didn't speak French, like the fact that I had a smile on my face and I tried to speak it, and then they would talk back to me in English, sometimes it would be a positive thing like, hey, this girl is trying to integrate into the culture. And even though she absolutely sucks at speaking French, at least she's trying. And like, I think that's bottom line what they appreciate. Okay, best moments was the traveling. The best moment I had on exchange wasn't even in Paris, it was in the Sahara Desert in Morocco. It was gorgeous. It was like I stepped into my laptop's desktop screen. Like it was just so beautiful. And I think the best part about going on exchange is that you meet like-minded people who also want to travel and do very spontaneous backpacking trips or stay in a hostel and get bed bugs. It's a very, very fun and thrilling experience. And I also learned to be a little bit more appreciative of Canada and how diverse it was and how like speech and like how unregulated things are. I think you get very, very um you get blindsided or you become forgetful of what you have when you're like in it. So yeah, when I came back to Toronto after my long, long journey in Europe, and then I also worked at internship in Hong Kong straight after. So after returning to Toronto after like 10 months of being abroad, I absolutely was like, wow, like I am so grateful for the city in Canada. And like, even though I used to hate Toronto, I love it. And like, obviously, I don't live in Toronto anymore, but I do love it. And if New York doesn't work out for me, I will go back to Toronto because I love Toronto. All right. Lastly, to wrap things up, because I never like my live stream going past 30 minutes, what is some advice that you have for others considering exchange? My first advice: if you get into a university you don't want to go to, definitely do research and definitely think about it. I didn't want to go to Sciences Po at first, but I did some research and I did like a lot of thinking. I got accepted in June and I didn't accept it until November. I did months and months and months and months of thinking, and that's why it worked out for me. But I have a friend who got her fifth choice, which was like a small city on the side of Spain. It's like a very small town with like one grocery store. And she declined her offer. And it's very, very right that she did that because what is she going to do in that city? It's so small. You don't know anybody there. Like, there's no grocery store. There's like one little bar. It's so far from the main cities in Spain. Like, unless you want like a small town experience, but I recommend an urban city, especially when you're going to exchange. Like, I do recommend an urban or at least like a city that you're really, really driven to, or else your experience is going to suck. And also, when you go to exchange, make sure to be really open and don't be mean because that will follow you. Like if you like make a bad connection with someone or you're really rude to someone in the beginning, your story is going to spread like wildfire and people are going to avoid you. Not saying that's what happened to me, but just from personal experience because the exchange community wherever you go is quite small. My other advice is that you don't have to go on exchange. Like I know a lot of people come back and they're like, "Oh my god, it changed my life." But if you have commitments or if you really love your time at the university you're in, you don't have to go. One of the main factors for me was that I would have to take a break from the dance team. And I had a lot of commitments on the dance team. At the time, I was a choreographer. So I had like a whole dance routine that I had to bring to competition. But then I ended up choosing to go on exchange anyways. But if you have commitments like a part time job or an internship, or you really believe that the last semester of your university is really important, or you love your university and you have friends back in your home university, you don't want to leave, then don't go. It's totally okay. You can visit that country in the summer. And one last thing is definitely financially, there are so many scholarships that you can apply for in and outside your university that support international studies. You just have to look for it. So if you're someone who is really interested in studying abroad, but you don't have the capacity, definitely do some research and start early and talk to professors and talk to school advisors because there are scholarships. For example, when I went to my summer abroad in Singapore, I actually got $2,000 back from the university, a scholarship to go to Singapore, and that covered my flight. And then after that, all I had to think about was housing, the school fee, and then living cost in Singapore for the 3 weeks. So that was really, really good. Other than that, this kind of concludes my exchange program Q&A. I see some questions in the comments. Okay. Do you plan to stay in the US or come back to Canada? And how many years do you have left? Great question. So I am in my second semester at NYU. So I'm gonna graduate May 2027, and then after May 2027, I have a year to like find employment in New York. So if I do I plan on staying in the US or coming back to Canada? I want to stay in New York. That will be my first choice. Like I do want to stay in the US after graduating my masters, but like I said, I don't mind going back to Toronto also. I think Toronto is a great young city that has a lot of potential. The winters are really, really cold, but that's like the only downside, in my opinion. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching, all 16 of you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next week for another Q&A. Bye.